During my graduation ceremony at Stanford, my parents publicly disowned me. I nearly broke down in tears. But it's fascinating to watch how people change when they suddenly need your money and your help. My name is Avery Dawson, and that day the applause wasn't for me. I stood under the blinding lights of the university auditorium, the stiff collar of my gown digging into my neck, heart pounding like a war drum, and yet, the cheers weren't mine. They were for my sister Sienna. Sienna, beaming in a floral dress, seated beside our parents in the front row. Not a graduate, not even enrolled. Yet somehow, all eyes had found her. The dean's voice echoed through the loudspeakers, reading off names like rolling thunder. I waited, tense, gripping the edge of my program so tightly the pages crinkled. Lila Chapman. A pause. Caleb Moreno. My name should have come next. I knew the order by heart. I'd triple-checked the program, practiced the timing. It was supposed to be my moment, but the next name came. Then another, and just like that, they'd skipped me. The applause didn't falter. The ceremony rolled on. My moment passed without so much as a whisper. I blinked, lips parting slightly, as if air alone could rewind what had just happened. I looked toward my parents and saw them clapping. Not confused, not panicked, just smiling. Smiling at Sienna, I felt a prickle rise up my arms, cold and sharp as sleet. She had her hair swept into a glossy low bun, soft makeup that looked effortless and expensive. Her fingers rested lightly on the edge of Mom's seat, like she belonged there. Center stage, even from the audience. Meanwhile, I stood frozen, humiliated in a sea of faces. Hundreds of them. No one looking twice. No one noticing what had just been erased. Can you imagine? Can you imagine working years toward something, only to vanish from your own story? Not by accident, but by design. It was never about the degree. Not for them. It was about the photo op, the narrative, the golden child at the center, and the inconvenient sister, who just happened to earn her spot, was easier to leave out. By the time the ceremony ended, I was shaking. Not with sadness. That would have been easier. No. What bubbled up was something hotter, sharper. Fury. I tried to find the logic. Maybe it was a clerical error. Maybe someone forgot to update the list. But when I cornered the event coordinator near the podium, she gave me a tight smile. "We were told you weren't walking," she said, flipping a clipboard. "Family requested we skip the announcement." My stomach flipped. "My family?" She nodded. "Your sister submitted the update last week. Said you'd transferred programs." Transferred? I co-founded a biotech firm while finishing my thesis. I'd published a paper in Nature Genetics. I had honors printed in Latin on the diploma still waiting at the registrar's desk. Transferred? The auditorium emptied around me, folding chairs echoing like hollow applause. I stood there, gown rustling in the soft breeze from the doorways, while my classmates hugged their parents and posed for pictures beneath the university seal. And I walked to my car. Alone. There was no post-ceremony lunch, no bouquet of flowers, just the mechanical whir of my engine as I pulled away from a milestone no one let me have. But the worst part wasn't being forgotten. It was knowing I hadn't been forgotten at all. I'd been edited out intentionally. Sienna's engagement announcement was due to go live that night. I'd seen the draft floating around our family's group chat, smiling portraits of her and Ethan in matching cream sweaters, arms around each other like a Pinterest ad come to life. The post had been carefully curated. The wording? Our proudest moment. The highlight of the Dawson legacy. No room for me, no competing headline. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just neglect. This was narrative control. And I wasn't collateral damage. I was competition. I parked 3 blocks away from home, unsure if I could walk through that door without screaming. But I had to know, had to see how deep it went. And sure enough, on the dining room table, a neatly wrapped package sat beneath a congratulations balloon. My name printed on the tag in neat, practiced cursive. I peeled the paper slowly, breath hitching. Inside? A leather-bound book. No title. No inscription. I opened the cover. The card fell out. Blank. No message. No note. Just absence. Cruel in its precision. Symbolic in its silence. Like the ceremony all over again. I clutched the blank card, the edges bending under my grip. My throat burned. But something shifted in me in that moment. A clarity I hadn't felt before. If they were going to erase me, I'd show them just how costly that choice would be. They may have written me out of the story, but I still knew how to take back the pen. And they were about to find out. The weight of the book in my lap felt heavier than it should. Not just because it was leather-bound and stiff with formality, but because I already knew, even before I flipped another page, what it meant. Blank. Not a single word written inside. No inscription. No date. Not even my name. Not "we're proud of you." Not "love mom and dad." Not even a lazy "congrats," like the kind you scribble on a coworker's farewell card. Just emptiness. It wasn't a mistake. It was a message. And the silence screamed louder than anything they could have said. I held the card between my fingers, trying to understand what kind of parent does that. What kind of person looks at their child after years of sacrifice, of relentless work, of proving themselves over and over, and says, "You don't deserve to be acknowledged." Because make no mistake, this wasn't just a forgetful oversight. My parents weren't disorganized. They were calculated. Always had been. They remembered Sienna's first ballet recital, down to the color of the ribbon in her hair. They remembered the soccer game, where she scored that one goal and carried on like she'd won the Olympics. They threw themed parties for her 6th grade graduation. Made her scrapbooks, personalized jewelry. Me? I got the book. A blank book. I turned it over in my hands, its cover embossed with gold filigree like it was supposed to mean something. Like maybe they thought the look of care could mask the lack of it. And I guess that's always been the thing. They've mastered the illusion of support. The appearances. The perfectly posed Christmas cards. The church potlucks. The polite conversations with my professors at parent weekends. All while slowly scrubbing me from the family's core story. Until what remained was Sienna and a shadow. I set the book down and stood up, heart pounding in my ears. I needed air. Outside, the sky was painted with that pre-summer softness, light blue streaked with sun-drunk clouds. The neighborhood was still, quiet. I sat on the porch steps, arms wrapped around my knees, trying to push the storm inside me back into something manageable. Then my phone buzzed. A name I hadn't seen in months lit up the screen. Jada, cousin. I stared at it for a second, debating. But something in me already knew. I swiped to answer. "Avery?" she said, voice hesitant. "Hey, weird question. Did you drop out of school?" My stomach dropped. "What?" "Yeah, she trailed off. Awkward now. "It's just, we were at Grandma's earlier, and Sienna was talking to Aunt Colleen and said you'd been taking time off. Like, that you didn't actually finish." I pressed a hand to my forehead. "She said what?" "She said you were figuring things out, that you're not really working in anything people would understand. I thought it was weird. I mean, you graduated, right?" "Top of my class," I whispered. A pause. Then, quietly, "Oh my God." Jada didn't have to say anything else. The words already sliced through me like paper cuts in places that had barely scarred over. It wasn't just the skipped name, the blank card. It was this. They were replacing me in real time. Rewriting me out of their story, chapter by chapter, telling relatives I'd dropped out, that I was between things, like my job, the one that funds half their precious wedding expenses, was some side gig I'd picked up after a failed degree. It wasn't absence, it was erasure. "Thanks for telling me," I murmured, trying to keep my voice even. "I thought you should know," she said softly. It didn't sit right with me. It didn't sit right with me either. But I wasn't just gonna sit with it. I was going to do something, because I'd spent my whole life letting their silence shape me, shaving off the edges of who I was just to fit into a mold they built for someone else. I played the good daughter, the smart one, the one who didn't make waves. But this was war, and I wasn't about to let them write me out of my own life. I walked back into the house, took the book off the table, placed the blank card inside its first page, and then I opened my laptop, not to post. Not to vent, to prepare, because they thought they were the authors of this family's narrative. But they forgot one thing. I know how stories work. I know how to flip the script. And they were about to learn that erasing me would come with a cost they never saw coming. Next time they speak my name, it won't be in past tense. I didn't confront them right away. No dramatic doorstep confrontation, no public showdown, not yet. What I needed first was proof and time. Time to figure out how deep the lie ran. Time to remind myself what I was made of. That Sunday, I sat on my couch in sweatpants, sipping a coffee that had long gone cold, watching the payroll dashboard refresh on my screen. My job wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, and I was damn good at it. Operations at a genomics startup might not sound sexy at a dinner party, but the company was my co-creation. I had bled into this thing. I built the infrastructure. I kept it afloat when no one else knew how. Which is why, when I saw a new name pop up under the intern roster, something twisted in my gut. Ethan Klein, submitted by Sienna Dawson. It took a second for the pieces to click. Sienna's fiancé, the same Sienna who'd told the family I'd taken time off, the same Sienna who'd smiled from the front row of my graduation ceremony like it was her coronation. Of course she'd plant him here, in my space, under my systems. This was the next move, a silent claim, as if everything I'd built could be casually borrowed for corporate experience. No heads up, no call, just entitlement. I hovered my cursor over the approve button, fingers still. For a moment, I considered denying it. Maybe that's what they expected, some jealous, petty refusal. But then I smiled. No, let them think they've won something. Click, approved. Let the game begin. Ethan arrived on Tuesday. Tall, clean-cut, well-spoken in the way finance bros tend to be. He wore loafers without socks and asked earnest questions about data ethics, but I saw right through him. The casual charm, the easy grin. Sienna had coached him well, but what she hadn't prepared him for was me. I welcomed him with professional courtesy. No tension, no bitterness, just the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly where she stood. I let subtle truths slip during meetings. Sometimes erasure is more dangerous than direct conflict, I said one morning, pointing to a slide about bias in medical data. It's not the data that lies. It's the silence around what's missing. He nodded, brow furrowing. Later, in a strategy session, I spoke about integrity. The way you show up in quiet moments tells people everything they need to know. Optics matter. But so does ownership. He watched me, listening closer now. But I didn't push. Not yet. A week later, I invited him to co-present at a pitch meeting. Nothing major. Just a session with a few investors and advisors. I framed it as a chance for him to get hands-on experience. He was eager, ready, polished. We sailed through the deck together, his talking points smooth, his smile camera-ready. And then, as we wrapped, I added a final slide. Just one line. Founded by Avery Dawson, co-founder and head of operations. I turned to the room and said, and I was glad to help. After all, I co-founded this company. Something Sienna's parents never bothered to learn. The air shifted. Just slightly. Ethan blinked. He didn't speak. Not right away. But his expression cracked for the first time. Not confusion. Not embarrassment. Something closer to realization. Later that afternoon, he found me in the hallway. Alone. The others had gone for lunch. He stood there, uncertain. Did you plan all this? He asked. His voice wasn't accusing. It was quiet. Like a man beginning to see the floor beneath him wasn't what he'd been told. I took a breath, then met his gaze. No, I said. But I don't waste opportunity when it walks through my door. He looked down, then away. They said you'd stepped back, that you were still figuring things out. I smiled, not cruelly, but with something calm and final behind it. I figured things out a long time ago. They just didn't notice. He didn't have an answer for that. And that was enough. For now. He showed up on time every day after that. Polite. Prepared. No more easy jokes or vague allusions to crypto projects or vision casting. Ethan watched more now. Not just the slides, but me. The choices I made. The way the team deferred to me without question. The way I navigated every room with steady, practiced authority. He never said anything directly, but the change was there. In the way he asked better questions. In the way he stopped mentioning Sienna. Then, On a quiet Thursday morning, I watched his name appear on the attendee list for a development meeting I hadn't invited him to. Someone must have forwarded the link. I didn't remove him. Let him listen. Let him see the truth from the inside. That afternoon, I found his thank you note folded neatly on my desk. Appreciate you letting me sit in today. You're running something really impressive here. No signature. Just the message. And I thought, let that truth settle in your bones before Sienna rewrites it. I didn't play favorites. I didn't pull rank. I just kept showing up. Focused, unwavering, deliberate. Because sometimes, the strongest power play isn't noise. It's presence. It's the slow erosion of someone else's illusion. On Friday, I asked him to join me again, this time for a quarterly planning session with our executive team. He was nervous. I could see it in the way he adjusted his watch and smoothed his tie. Still, he took his seat beside me. I let him open the presentation. He handled it well. Then I took over. Walked through the projections, the hiring models, the R&D trajectory for the next 2 fiscal years. Heads nodded. Questions came fast. I answered them all. Not to impress, but because I knew every inch of what I'd built. And when we wrapped, I turned toward him. Just slightly. Just enough. I'm glad Ethan could join, I said. He's got a lot of potential. And mentorship matters. After all, someone once gave me a shot, when no one else believed I could run a division on my own. I let the pause linger, then smiled. Turns out I could run a company. The room went quiet for a beat, the kind of quiet that's half recognition, half recalibration. I watched Ethan absorb it, the realization settling in. He hadn't just been dropped into a startup. He'd been dropped into the engine I built. The legacy Sienna's family didn't even know they owed to me. That night, I stayed late at the office, logged into the internal records again, almost on autopilot. There it was, submitted by Sienna Dawson. Internship application, supporting documents, cover letter. I clicked through the attached files. One of them was a PDF scan of Ethan's resume. Another was a note from Sienna to our HR coordinator, excited for Ethan to see how things work at the ground level. It'll be so valuable for him before he starts exploring options for his own ventures. Options. Ventures. Sienna's favorite words. Funny, isn't it? How some people build things, and others just float from vision to vision, assuming the scaffolding will magically appear. I stared at the email chain for a long time, then quietly forwarded it to myself. Just in case. Because the truth was, I didn't need to trap anyone. I didn't need to explode or retaliate. I just had to wait. Let them write me out. I'd already made my way back in, without a single headline. They wanted silence? I'd weaponize it. They wanted erasure? I'd leave fingerprints on everything. Next time they looked for me, they'd find my name burned into the foundation. The call came at 9:42 p.m. Sienna. No greeting, no preamble, just static and sharpness. What are you doing with Ethan? I didn't answer right away. Let the silence stretch long enough for her voice to crack a little. He's been different, she said, lower now. Asking questions. Acting like he doesn't trust me. I leaned back in my chair, the hum of my apartment settling around me. The lights of the city flickered through my window like distant applause. Maybe he's learning, I said, seeing things clearly. You're poisoning him, she snapped. I almost laughed. No, Sienna. I'm just not hiding the truth anymore. She went quiet, but I heard her breathing, heard the panic pulsing through it. Why now? She whispered. You've been invisible for years. Why start caring? Invisible. That word again. I stood and walked to the kitchen, her voice still echoing through the speaker. I didn't start caring, I said. I just stopped apologizing. Then I hung up. No theatrics. No last word. Just a clean, decisive end to a conversation that never should have started. Monday morning, Ethan and I presented a new proposal to a senior advisor group. It was nothing flashy, just a process optimization plan for our lab logistics. But it mattered. Ethan did well. I let him lead more this time. And when we reached the final slide, I paused. This plan, I said, is a good example of collaboration. Ethan brought in new ideas. I brought experience. But I want to acknowledge something else. I clicked to a final slide. A photo of our founding team. Old, grainy. Before the branding. Before the recognition. Me, in a hoodie, hunched over blueprints. Sienna's parents never saw this version of me. The builder, the architect, they saw Sienna's bright smile and assumed the support systems just appeared. And I was glad to help, I said, glancing at Ethan, because it's what I do. I build, I support, I fix. Even when no one's clapping. Even when they forget I'm here. The room was still. Something Sienna's parents never bothered to learn, I added softly. Ethan turned, slow and deliberate. His expression didn't change, but I saw the gears moving behind his eyes. Later, as we packed up, he lingered. That photo, he said. I never knew you. You weren't supposed to, I said. That's how they wrote the story. He hesitated. And now? Now, I said, locking my laptop. I'm writing it myself. He didn't ask anything else. But the next day, he forwarded me a message from Sienna. A long one. Defensive. Desperate. Ethan, don't let her twist things. She's always needed to be the smartest in the room. Just ignore her. He didn't include commentary. Just the message, forwarded clean. I didn't reply. I didn't have to. That night, my phone buzzed again. A new message. From my parents. We're going to need some financial help again. Sienna's wedding is under strain. No mention of graduation. Of my name. Just another request, like I was a fund to be tapped when things got inconvenient. I didn't respond. Not right away. I waited a full hour. Then I typed, public acknowledgement, and every dollar I've paid gets repaid. That's the price. No emojis, no warmth, just terms. 2 minutes later they replied, we'll discuss it. This isn't how families treat each other. I stared at that sentence until my eyes blurred. And then I replied, you're right. It isn't. But it's how you treated me. I powered down my phone and poured a glass of wine, sat on the couch and let the quiet wrap around me. I hadn't raised my voice, hadn't stormed into any rooms, but I'd turned the volume up on the one thing they couldn't mute anymore. Me. He caught me just as I was heading out for the day. 1 foot in the elevator. Laptop bag slung over my shoulder. Avery. His voice wasn't sharp, but something about the way he said my name made me pause. He looked tired. Not the kind of tired that comes from late nights or office politics, but the kind that sinks in once denial starts to crack. I held the elevator door open, raised an eyebrow. Everything all right? He stepped in slowly, pressing the button for the lobby before facing me fully. Did you plan all this? I didn't pretend not to know what he meant. I didn't feign surprise. I met his eyes and said, calmly, no, but I don't waste opportunity when it walks through my door. He nodded once. That slow, reluctant sort of nod people give when they realize the ground they've been standing on isn't what they thought it was. You knew she submitted my internship? Of course I did. And you let it go through. I tilted my head. You weren't the one I had a problem with. Silence stretched between us as the elevator hummed its way down. His jaw flexed like he wanted to say more, but couldn't yet find the right words. I didn't know, he said quietly, after a moment. I thought you were just Sienna's older sister. Bit intense. Maybe competitive. I almost laughed. They made sure that's all anyone ever saw. And it worked for a while. Until now. The doors opened with a soft chime. He didn't step out. I keep thinking about that pitch meeting, he said. The way you handled the room. The photo. It's not just that you're good at what you do. It's that you've been doing it this whole time, while everyone else was too busy applauding Sienna. I shifted my bag higher on my shoulder. The weight familiar. They didn't want me visible, Ethan. Not when Sienna needed the spotlight. And you don't get to keep both daughters in focus when one's building while the other's performing. We walked out into the cool evening air, the city buzzing gently around us. He stopped just outside the revolving doors, shoved his hands into his pockets. She said you'd try to make her look bad, he admitted. That you'd twist things to make yourself the victim. I smiled. Not bitter, just tired. I'm not interested in making her look bad. I'm interested in telling the truth. If that makes her uncomfortable, that's her own reflection talking. He looked at me like he was seeing someone, for the first time. And maybe he was. I don't think she realizes what she walked you into, he said. I met his gaze, steady. I don't think she cared. Not until it stopped serving her. He didn't argue. Didn't defend her. Just nodded again, slower this time. Thanks for not humiliating me. I gave a small shrug. You weren't the one who tried to erase me. He stepped back, and for a moment, we just stood there. Two people who had once been on opposite sides of a story they didn't fully understand. Good night, Ethan. He nodded. Good night, Avery. And as I turned to walk down the street, the wind tugging gently at my coat, I felt it settle inside me. Not victory. Not yet. But control. Finally. And that was enough for now. She called 3 times before I picked up. By then, I already knew it would be more performance than apology. Sienna only ever reached out when things were slipping from her grip. And lately, things were slipping fast. Avery, she breathed into the phone. No hello, no acknowledgement of silence. Can we talk, please? I closed my laptop, leaned back on the couch, and let the pause drag out just long enough to remind her who held the floor now. I'm listening. Her voice cracked around the edges, less polished than usual. I don't know what you're doing with Ethan, but it's getting out of hand. He's questioning everything. He keeps asking about the company, about your role there, about us. I told him we're close. I almost laughed. Are we? I told him you were just going through a hard time, she said quickly, defensively. That you've always had trouble with boundaries. That you didn't mean anything by it. Didn't mean anything by what? Her silence was a confession. Exactly, I said softly. You can't even finish that sentence without lying. Her breath hitched. Avery, please, just let it go. Don't do this. Do what? I said, still calm. Tell the truth? Show up? Exist in my own story? Her voice dropped. He's thinking about postponing the wedding. That gave me pause, but not for the reason she hoped. This was supposed to be the happiest time of my life, she whispered, so low I had to lean in to hear. And you're ruining it. I closed my eyes for a long moment. Let the fury pass through me like a wave without pulling me under. No, Sienna, you did that. When you decided my success was inconvenient. When you told people I dropped out. When you used my company like a toy you could borrow for show and tell. I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped letting you write my ending. The other end of the line went quiet. Then, you've made your point, okay? You've embarrassed me. You've turned Ethan against me. What more do you want? I almost smiled. It's not about embarrassment. It's about recognition. She scoffed. You want a medal for being a martyr? No, I said. I want my name. I want my voice back. I want the years you stole from me. The birthdays ignored. The work dismissed. The silence passed off as love. I want the truth. Her voice dropped to a whisper. They told me to do it. I blinked. What? Mom and Dad, she murmured. They said if people thought you'd dropped out, it would make the wedding story cleaner. Less complicated. They wanted everything perfect. I wanted to make them proud. That hit harder than I expected. Not because it was surprising, but because she said it like that, made it okay. I paid for the down payment on your venue, Sienna, with a holiday bonus from a company I co-founded while finishing a degree no one clapped for. I didn't ask for applause, just respect. A long silence. Then, I'll talk to them, she said. I'll tell them to post something. Not enough. What more do you want? I want repayment, I said evenly. Every dollar I covered. And a public acknowledgement. Not just from you, but from them. Not flowery. Not fake. Just factual. I'm not a ghost, Sienna. I'm the one who kept the lights on while you played bride. She started to cry then, real and raw. But I didn't soften. Because I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. Fix it, I said, or lose me. This is the last time I explain who I am. And then, I ended the call. This time, I didn't tremble. I didn't cry. I just stood, shoulders back, steady, finally unshakable. They blinked first. A message from my father, crisp and impersonal, arrived the next morning. Drafted a note for the family Facebook. Your mother thinks it's tasteful. Let us know if you approve. No subject line, no apology, just negotiation, as if I were a vendor fulfilling a contract. I opened the attachment. We're proud to share that our daughter Avery has recently completed her studies and is exploring new opportunities in the tech world. We wish her continued success and send our love. I read it twice. Then again, no mention of the actual degree, no word about the company I co-founded, no acknowledgement of years of sacrifice or the carefully curated erasure they'd orchestrated. It was a placeholder, vague and sanitized, like a weather update. I replied with a single line, "You missed the part where I existed." An hour later, another message came in, this time from my mother. "Sienna is devastated. The wedding's falling apart, and now you're threatening to dismantle what's left of this family's peace." Peace. That was the word they always used when they meant control. I didn't answer. Not yet. I let them stew. Let them remember that silence is only golden when you still hold the power to fill it. That evening, Ethan sent me a message. They asked me to stay quiet, told me not to stir up more trouble. But I've seen the receipts, Avery. Literally, you paid for more than half this wedding. You ran circles around them while they smiled for pictures. I just wanted you to know. I see it now. I stared at the screen for a long time, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I typed, "Good. Some truths don't need to be screamed. They just need to be seen." 3 days later, the post went up. It was stiff, formal, and clearly written under pressure, but it was real. "We want to acknowledge our daughter, Avery Dawson, co-founder of a rising biotech company, recent graduate with distinction, and a driving force behind many of our family's proudest milestones. We regret not celebrating her sooner." No tags, no hearts, but no edits either. Sienna's name wasn't mentioned. She texted me within minutes. "Are you happy now? You won. You got the credit. I hope it was worth it." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my own page, took a breath, and posted, "I didn't demand love, just truth. There's a difference. The record is corrected. And that's enough for me." Then I attached a photo. Not a selfie, not a family throwback. A picture of me at my desk, lab coat half off, coffee in hand, my diploma hanging behind me, and a whiteboard scribbled with gene flow models and strategic goals. Caption, "Invisible no more." That evening, I walked through the park near my apartment, dusk settling in, the world soft with early summer. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel cruel. I felt done. Not bitter. Not vengeful. Just complete. This wasn't about punishing anyone. It was about writing myself back into the history I'd been quietly helping build. The version of me who used to ache for approval, she was gone. In her place stood someone who knew her value, and who finally understood that being erased wasn't the same as being powerless. Sienna and I haven't spoken since. She didn't cancel the wedding, but it was quieter, fewer guests, no lavish posts. Ethan stood by her, though I noticed the light in his eyes dimmed just a little, like someone who finally saw the stage he'd stepped onto. As for my parents, they haven't called, not directly, but I heard from Aunt Teresa that they read my post out loud at church and said they were proud in their own way. Maybe that's the best they can do. Maybe that's all they ever had. And maybe that's fine, because I'm no longer standing in the wings waiting for their applause. I have my own stage now, and I don't need a spotlight to shine. I left the company 6 months later, not out of spite, but because it was time. I sold my shares to the partners I trusted, took a sabbatical, and started working on something new. A grant program for young women in STEM whose families never quite saw them clearly. It's called the Dawson Light Initiative, because sometimes, when the people closest to you dim your light, you learn to generate your own. And when they try to write you out, you write yourself back in. This time, in ink. Have you ever had to reclaim your place in a story someone else tried to erase you from? If this story spoke to you, drop a comment, share your truth, and let someone else know they're not alone. Because the erased aren't gone. We're just waiting to be heard.